This week on the Tech on Tap podcast, we unleashed the latest converged offering from NetApp, FlexPod SF.
Welcome to the Tech on Tap podcast with Justin Parisi, Glenn Sizemore, and Sully the Monster.
I love NetApp. Oh, yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Tech on Tap podcast. My name is Justin Parisi. On the phone with me today, Glenn Sizemore.
How we doing, Justin?
I'm doing super. This is a fabulous Tuesday.
Caffeinated.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I've got my coffee right here. I've got everything I need for the morning. I had some breakfast. Yeah. You could say my morning is converged.
Oh, snap. And there it begins already.
Yeah, you like that? You like that segue there?
I did.
Anyway, man, I guess I haven't had enough coffee yet. Also on the phone with me today is VMiss, Melissa Palmer. Hi, VMiss.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Good. Now, is it Mrs. VMiss or just VMiss?
Just VMiss, kind of like Madonna, just one name.
Yes. Yes, kind of like
We're
NATO.
making our way towards a symbol.
Kind of like
Yes.
NATO. All right, and on the phone also with us is Brett Sinclair. Hi, Brett.
How you doing?
Doing great. So we're going to go around and just talk about who everybody is and what they do here. What I wanted to point out, though, is it's Brett Sinclair, not Sinclair, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I was trying to find you in the gals. Like, who is this Brett Sinclair? There's nobody there. And then, yeah. So, yeah, that's an interesting name. That's an interesting spelling.
You can call me either.
Yeah. All right, so Brett, if you could tell the listeners a little bit about what you do here at NetApp.
I am the product manager here at NetApp, covering the SolidFire product line. I specifically focus on the platform for SolidFire. So all the existing AFA, as well as the new converged infrastructure storage platform that we're putting out, the SF9608 or FlexPod for SolidFire.
Oh, spoiler alert. We're going to build up to that. Also on the phone, like we said, Melissa Palmer. Melissa, tell everybody what you do if nobody knows.
Hey, everybody. My name is Melissa Palmer, and I am a FlexPod TME here at NetApp.
All right. So in case you haven't noticed, we've brought some FlexPod power here. We've already had Glenn here for a while, so he's one of the FlexPod muscles. But we also have Melissa Palmer and also Brett Sinclair to talk about the latest release and offering for FlexPod, the SolidFire edition. Brett, what are we officially calling this thing?
The storage appliance will be called the SF9608.
Yeah, but do we have any flashy name for that? Like, is it like SolidPod?
No, it's FlexPod SF is what the whole solution will be called.
Okay.
Yeah, not quite as flashy as you'd like, but
Does that stand for Superfragicalistic Expialidocious?
that's
Yes.
right. Yeah, we just put that in an acronym, and
It does now.
Well, I wish we had called it FlexPod AF. That'd have been pretty awesome.
That actually would have been pretty great.
Anyway, that's why I don't work in marketing, because I'm a train wreck. So, Brett, if you could tell us a little bit about what the FlexPod SF is, in case people don't know what a FlexPod is, and in case they don't know what an SF is, let's kind of give the rundown of that.
Yeah, so to start, the FlexPod is a converged infrastructure. It's a partnership between Cisco and NetApp that essentially combine compute, networking, storage, and wraps it in a solution like VMware, OpenStack, Docker containers, those types of things. So to start with the FlexPod, the SolidFire side, NetApp owns the SolidFire product line. So SolidFire is the storage appliance within the FlexPod solution. And the SF9608, which will be the storage appliance or the storage node, is essentially a combined solution with C220. It's a C220 SolidFire software, element software running on top of a C220 M4 chassis. So this will be a completely Cisco-branded FlexPod from switching on down all the way to the storage layer. And it'll be wrapped in a VMware 6.5 solution.
Okay, so we're doing SolidFire and a FlexPod. We already had FAS and a FlexPod. So what's the use case? Like, what's the general ask for a SolidFire and a FlexPod? What was driving that decision?
Well, the biggest thing is one, to strengthen the partnership between NetApp, SolidFire, and Cisco. They've been really looking to compete against additional other CVDs out there that were Cisco combined. You got the EMC V Block. A lot of these companies are competing now through acquisition with Dell. Cisco really wanted a product that they could go to market with that was built for the next generation data center and not built on just kind of a legacy converged infrastructure to build out. SolidFire offered a perfect opportunity for them to take advantage of not only running storage software on top of their hardware, but the ability to scale out and be 100% programmable. So it expands their capability of ease of use and simplicity to be able to scale exponentially in a converged infrastructure setting.
It's really the last point that Brett touched on, because obviously, right, our traditional FlexPod line is fully programmable and supports scaling of all different types, but it's really all about levels of effort that go into that, right? Consuming a ONTAP based FlexPod and programming against that is more complicated and is a little bit more challenging than what we get out of something that's powered by Element OS. And it's also worth mentioning that we have supported SolidFire in the FlexPod product line since, Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a month after the acquisition, right?
Yeah, exactly. When I was at Insight this year, we had our first offering which was adding SolidFire nodes to an existing FlexPod. And that was just because so many of our FlexPod customers really wanted to take advantage of the SolidFire platform. And the next question we got was, well, when can I just buy a complete SolidFire-based FlexPod? So many FlexPod and SolidFire customers were looking for that, to start building their next-gen data centers. So this is really kind of the response to their ask since the acquisition.
Yeah, so taking that core requirement of, hey, this is great, we love this, it's peanut butter and chocolate, the joke we've been making for 6 months. But turning that into more of a well-defined product offering and a package, as Brett was explaining for us, and we went down the path of adding a new storage appliance in the portfolio itself. Speaking of that appliance, hey Brett, what's in the box?
Great question. So the SF9608 storage node like I said, is Element software running on top of a Cisco C220 M4 chassis. It is important to remember that it is a SolidFire platform, so it's not going to be used as a Cisco server. This is a storage platform. That's an important fact to always remember. I think what's important about what's in the box is the C220 has eight Samsung drives. These are PM863A Cisco branded drives. They will be non-encrypted. This is an iSCSI only solution, and it'll have 10 gig connectivity out of the back. To start off, there's a minimum of a 4-node cluster, and you're looking at each individual node that can produce up to 75,000 guaranteed IOPS, 4K IOPS, as well as have a effective capacity of anywhere from 10 to 32 gigs, depending on the efficiencies that are gained through that. So we're looking at, and that's on a minimum cluster of 4 nodes. You can then exponentially kind of just keep adding nodes to that, a single node at a time. You can also scale those nodes back at any time. So that's really the flexibility and the simplicity that we were talking about. Each node, again, in a minimum 4-node cluster, can produce up to 300,000 IOPS in that cluster. So, again, you can just keep continuing to expand that with a guaranteed IOPS of 75,000 per box as you continue to grow. And that's really pretty much the breakdown of the specs inside.
Brett, are there any limitations from an Element OS perspective for customers if they ever wanted to start to mix and match these SF FlexPod nodes with traditional SolidFire appliance nodes?
That's a great question. Actually, there is not. You can actually mix the C2 the SF9608 with an existing Dell cluster. You can mix it with any of the existing SolidFire product lines at this point. The only thing I caution is that because it is a non-encrypting node that if you have a non-encrypt or if you have an encrypting cluster, that once you add a non-encrypting node into it, it will consider it as a non-encrypted cluster at that point. So just something to be aware of. But no, the node itself has no issues with mixing and matching with all of their SolidFire product lines.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's probably worth kind of calling out. I don't know that if you want to go into the details behind this, but if I understand this situation correctly, the Cisco M4 node that we put together, even though we have fewer drives, we're actually getting more IOPS out of that node. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're actually getting more IOPS, and the reason for that, you're actually getting. We have a similar product called the SF9605, and that's 50,000 IOPS per node. One of the main reasons is much of the performance is CPU bound. With less drives in the node itself, it's able to disperse that performance across less capacity, producing more IOPS in a single box than you would get with our normal product line.
All right. Well, so now that we've covered the speeds and feeds, if you will, the reason that I wanted to drag Melissa into the podcast today is because she has just finished up validating, and we are getting ready to release our first design based on this new hardware. So, Melissa, could you give us an idea of what that solution looks like, and then we'll kind of dig into it?
Gee, you guys make me sound like I am like the FlexPod queen or something.
Between you and Lindsay, that's pretty much the entire royal family as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the royal family. We had a fantastic engineering team put together for this effort. We had myself and Lindsay Street from NetApp. We had Chad Smith from NetApp SolidFire and Archana Sharma from Cisco. And, everybody just worked so hard together to get this ready for Cisco Live and get this out the door. And we followed our similar FlexPod processes that we always follow. So, you had the pre-validated solution that you're used to here. We did this exactly like a regular FlexPod. We have a wonderful design guide that just came out. It kind of goes through everything for you. So it talks about our Nexus 9000 switching platform. It talks about our Cisco UCS B-Series blade chassis and servers. And it really gives a great overview of the FlexPod SolidFire storage nodes. So if you're not even that familiar with SolidFire, this is a really great starting point for you to learn more about it and understand it in the context of a FlexPod. With our first solution, we went ahead and we validated everything with VMware vSphere 6.5. That's what we're seeing a lot of customers using right now. So that's why we wanted to start with it. Start with something that's going to cover most of our bases.
In that typical validation, I'll go ahead and throw you a softball to get us started. I know one thing that longtime FlexPod customers are going to notice right off the bat is we do have some pretty stringent rules about how those SolidFire storage nodes get connected in. You want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So one of the documents that goes along with our CVD is something called the technical specifications. And we have one for each of our FlexPod platforms. So we have, our FlexPod data center technical specifications, our FlexPod Express technical specifications, and now our FlexPod SF technical specifications. And when you read this document, you'll learn more about, the rules for connecting everything. But in brief, what we do here is we take our SolidFire storage nodes, our 9608 SolidFire storage nodes, and we connect them directly to our Nexus switches. So we're going right into that network just to kind of give everybody the best performance and the best speed going forward.
Yeah, and just to go ahead and get ahead, we cannot connect those directly to the Fabric interconnects, correct?
No, we're not connecting them at this time.
Awesome. So what would you call out as kind of the key advantage of this solution? What in your opinion, coming off a couple of years now of just steady grinding and knocking out architecture, what jumped off the page with this one that differentiates it from what we typically work with?
Well, really at the heart of it is you have the NetApp SolidFire storage nodes. That kind of next generation data center that we were talking about earlier before, the programmability, the integration with things like the vSphere software suite. So we are using vSphere 6.5, which this is going to sound weird, but this 6.5 might be my favorite vSphere version since vSphere 4. So I really like 6.5 a lot. It just, the new web interfaces, the new host client, everything just works so well. And, adding the power of NetApp SolidFire to that and the integration, it's really just such a great base platform for a vSphere deployment. you have all your programmability, you can do all the different great vRealize workflows, and you can scale it one node at a time. Whenever you need more performance, boom, just add a node, and you have 75,000 IOPS coming your way.
The thing that kind of jumps off, the thing that was jumping off the page for me, Melissa, and the thing that I was kind of wondering if you would bring up is I see a really good synergy with the FlexPod SF Stack for customers who don't really know what they're getting into. The flexibility that this platform provides, quite frankly, is above and beyond what we get out of a traditional FlexPod. The ability to just deploy, get it out in production, to see what the workload actually is, and then adjust from there is really second to none. And when we're looking at a full UCS stack, a full Nexus stack, and then a full ElementOS SolidFire stack, not only do we get that just incredible scalability and incredible flexibility, but we're also dealing with something that it has centralized management as the top line key feature, right? UCS Manager consolidating all of the compute for us, and ElementOS consolidating all of the storage management functionality. But then simultaneously, not only is it easier to manage, but it's also completely guaranteed all the way from the top to the bottom of the stack through the network, compute, the whole nine. So it really is just a super, super clean platform. I can't wait to see what our field does with it.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many cases out there where you think you know what your vSphere workload is. Oh, I did all this upfront work. I did all this sizing. I evaluated all my applications, and you deploy it, and it's nothing. It isn't anything like you thought it was. This platform makes it so easy to scale any compute. I add a new blade chassis, I have more blades. I add more SolidFire nodes, I have more storage. So it really just is scalable for those, like you said, kind of unpredicted or unknown workloads. Another great use case that we see a lot of people is, we just bought another company, or we're merging with somebody, and we suddenly need all this performance and all this, compute that we didn't need before. It's really super easy just to connect it up and get running.
We probably should have addressed this at the top, but I'm curious, are there any additional kind of scaling limitations associated with the SF9608 node, or is it just, again, I'm pretty sure I know the answer here, but is this just standard SolidFire?
Yeah, this is just standard SolidFire. No real scaling limitations. I mean, there are always, considerations to take into consideration around fault domains and things like that for customers. But no, you can scale up and scale back just as easily as you could with our traditional SolidFire line.
So would I be adding more pods to this, or would I be adding more nodes to the pod itself?
More nodes to the pod itself. So you can add additional pods as well. What makes SolidFire really kind of an interesting platform is that, like I said, the scale back feature is just as powerful as the scale out feature. If you choose to kind of break out that pod and split it into two for whatever various reasons, you can do that just as easily and take one of those nodes out. I think one of the biggest features to kind of hit on with SolidFire is the high availability or the failover capabilities of it. We're the only storage architecture out there at this point that can fail an entire storage node and still remain completely high available. You still keep all your not only all your data, but you're going to maintain all your QoS settings. So there's no other storage vendor out there that can actually fail an entire node in a system and stay up and running and guarantee performance.
Yeah, it is interesting as a longtime NetApp guy. The two extremes at which I see SolidFire plug in very cleanly. At the kind of entry level where the term that I love to use is a growth engine, because that's the place where I just see SolidFire winning hands down. When you're dealing with a business that is dealing with something that is growing from nothing, the way that we can add in nodes into a SolidFire cluster and just cleanly scale as the business requires on demand quickly and easily, and then later on, as you just addressed, when those peaks pass, the ability to just pull those nodes back out, shove them in a box, FedEx them somewhere else, and then reuse those assets without any penalty at all is just incredibly powerful, right? And taking that kind of capability and bundling it with the FlexPod's ability to simplify deployments and remove risk from enterprise deployments, both in traditional enterprise customers, but also in larger service provider accounts. which kind of speaks to those two different ends of the scale. Starting with a product that was developed for service providers, you've always had that kind of core niche use case. But because it has this super friendly economic model, it's also just very powerful for the smaller end, where you're just trying to get something up and running.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to bring up that point too, Glenn. As I mentioned before, sometimes we don't deploy enough resources, and sometimes we realize as we're migrating applications and new workloads to like a next generation environment like this, we don't need to bring everything over, or we can scale back, or we're not going to use this app anymore. Exactly what you said. Throw the nodes in a box, ship them someplace else, and deploy them another place. Build yourself another FlexPod in your second data center for disaster recovery.
Yeah, and I think one of the most understated, topics when people talk about SolidFire is really the ability to kind of control the ease of use around planning, capacity planning and budgeting and all that. SolidFire, to me, is probably the most impactful in that realm, simply because when you no longer have to really look at 3 years out and say, okay, here's the projects on our plate. We're taking a stab at what we're going to need for capacity and performance and to do all this. And then as the business changes and demands change on you, which they always do, you're stuck with, a budget to figure out how to either, buy another complete system and expand out a massive amount of capacity, which you may not have budget for, or you may just try to figure out how to get what you have to work, and scrap other projects that are going on, and a lot of prioritization and time taken up in that. With SolidFire, since you can expand a single node, one node at a time, it really eases that burden. You don't really have to worry about that. You can kind of move forward, and as the business changes and demands change with it, you can expand both capacity and performance along with that.
Yeah, it's particularly I just keep coming back around to the ease of management. It's really hard to get. It's really easy rather to get lost in the speeds and feeds and the technology of how these things work. But the tongue in cheek cavalier campaign that we had last year, running around declaring the death of the storage admin, was actually very successful in kind of expressing that concept of look, guys, we're not saying that you're not valuable anymore. What we're trying to explain to you is this platform doesn't require those roles. It just deals with all of that, and it boils it down into two very simple values that anyone can monitor. Here's how much capacity you have, and here's how much performance you have left. That's it. If you run out of either one of those buckets, you add a node, and there's no additional thought that goes into this platform at all.
You literally just add the node and it does everything for you.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's super, super powerful, right? Melissa and I have been deep in this FlexPod world for a very long time. And while there isn't a workload that we haven't been able to address to date, right? We have architectures that satisfy any requirement you could possibly imagine at this point in time. They're not that simple. They just aren't, right? They have other trade-offs. So what we're bringing to market with the FlexPod SF offering is not only this new package, but really for me the big takeaway is we're just the barrier of entry goes all the way to the ground. We're literally just going to take the bar and set it on the ground, and that's how hard it is to run that thing.
Exactly. And the thing you brought up about the death of the storage admin, I think a lot of storage admins saw that as, oh no, my job is going to go away and I'm going to get fired and I'm going to get outsourced. That's not what it's about. It's about reducing the operational overhead to let you innovate in your business. Like, what is your bottom line? What is the bottom line for our customers? Go do that. Go work on new applications. Go work on new infrastructure projects. Go do things that's going to drive your business. Don't spend your time managing your storage.
Yeah, totally. Right. Do you want to sit there and micromanage those resources and have to stress out about it? I mean, if you can avoid it, why not? Right. 100% of the time. So, Brett, before we completely land this plane, I'm curious from your perspective, what kind of workloads did you have in mind when you guys were putting this offering together? What market is this really aimed at?
Yeah, well, I think with SolidFire, I mean, you definitely have other FlexPod options out there, right? And NetApp has a pretty broad array of options and solutions that you can choose from. I think with SolidFire, what you really want to kind of focus on, and where we start differentiating ourselves from the other solutions, is around the idea that the SolidFire is truly built for the next generation data center. And what that means is we're primarily focused a lot on IT as a service, right? People looking to provide infrastructure and storage infrastructure as a service back to their customer, whether that's internal, whether that's external, whether you're looking at a cloud-based operation through web SaaS. These cloud-like operations are really the SolidFire sweet spot. Again, just to kind of hark back to what we were talking about earlier, the simplicity, the scale out, all the things that make SolidFire really a differentiated product go right into those use cases. And I think from a FlexPod point of view, when you're looking at simplicity and standardization, being able to, ease of use of rolling out your entire infrastructure in a configuration that makes sense, that works for you, SolidFire really starts to fit well into customers looking to expand that quickly. And so those are the markets that we're generally looking to attack here. It is cloud-based operations, customers looking to go to more of a chargeback model, IT as a service. And as we move forward, I think the customers will find a lot of value in being able to deploy quickly that way.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a home run. I mean, honestly, we do that stuff with FAS today and all flash FAS, but the amount of work that it takes to get all those metrics and to get that wired back into the OSS and BSS platform, it's a lot of work, right? And with SolidFire, it isn't a lot of work. It's just there.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I agree. I think, in definitely traditional virtual environments and heavy production, AFF is great. I mean, it's going to be your workhorse. It's just a differentiated product that allows you to kind of take that simplicity of a converged infrastructure and expand it and grow your business even that much more.
Okay, Brett, Melissa, thanks so much for joining us today. If people wanted to get in touch with you and talk about SolidFire or SolidFire FlexPod SF.
FlexPod SF.
Thank you.
Superfragicalistic expialidocious.
I told you I'm terrible at this marketing deal. So yeah, if they wanted to get in touch with you, Melissa, how would they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at vmis33 or on my blog at vmis.net. All
right, and Brett, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. Just Brett Sinclair, and that is Sinclair with no N in it, so SICLAIR, and feel free to hit me up on that.
All right, thanks so much, guys. All right, that music tells me it's time to go. If you'd like to get in touch with us, send us an email to podcast@netapp.com or send us a tweet at netapp. As always, if you'd like to subscribe, find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher, or via TechOnTap.podcast.com. If you like the show today, leave us a review. On behalf of the entire Tech on Tap podcast team, I'd like to thank Melissa Palmer and Brett Sinclair for joining us today and talking about FlexPod SF. See, I got it right. Isn't that great, Melissa?
You did. I'm very proud of you.
You should be so proud of me.
Very good.
I learned from fast learners.
I want everyone at Cisco Live to go walk up to the NetApp page and ask to see the FlexPod SuperCalifragilistic experience.
Are you guys trying to get me in trouble?
Is it just
yes.
just getting off on this?
No, that's the best name ever.
It is the best name ever.
It is.
FlexPod SF. That's it. Almost like Madonna.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.